Today I'm going to be talking about, can you hear me? Okay. How we use fast subject headings in ArchivesSpace at VMI. And first, very briefly, I'll explain what FAST is for anyone who's not familiar. It stands for Faceted Application of Subject Terminology, and it was developed by OCLC beginning around 1998 by adapting the vocabulary of LCSH into a simpler syntax. And their goal was to create a taxonomy that's easier for non-catalogers to use than LCSH, and also something designed specifically with the web and linked data in mind. Because, of course, LCSH was designed over 100 years ago for an environment that really no longer exists, which is left-aligned catalog cards that were limited on vertical space. But nowadays, not only is space not an issue, but many catalogs don't even allow users the opportunity to browse subject headings anymore. So there's really no need to maintain that left-aligned hierarchy of an LC heading that served to keep headings of similar topics together visually. So a key feature of Facet that it breaks up these long headings that you're used to seeing in LC into much shorter headings that only contain a single facet, which is where the F in FAST comes from. And by facet, they mean geographic, chronological, topical. So here's an example of an LC heading, a single LC heading, and its FAST equivalent, which is 6 separate headings, but they're much shorter. So then before showing you what we actually do with it in ArchivesSpace, I just want to talk about a few problems with using FAST. One is that, use this one? No. All right. One is that, and you may have figured this out already, by breaking up terms, you can lose some important context. So for example, here's an item where it's 2 LC headings pretty clearly tell you that it's about the influence of the Mexican War on the campaigns of the Civil War. But the FAST headings give you no indication of which event is doing the influencing because they've all been broken up. Now, of course, in this example, we know it has to be the Mexican War because that came first. But this is just an obvious example of the kind of context that can be lost when you break up the headings. And then another thing I alluded to before is the loss of the ability to browse subject headings. So even though some catalogs don't offer that anymore, some still do. And as you probably know, ArchivesSpace does. So for example, if we wanted a heading on the Allied occupation post-World War II of Japan, if we use the LC heading in ArchivesSpace, it's going to be listed along with every other heading about Japanese history. But if we use the FAST heading, that's not going to be the case. So now I'll show you what we actually do with it. And I was hoping to do a demo, but it looks like I won't be able to do that. And unfortunately, the screenshots may not have come through. So OCLC has various tools and APIs available for working with fast headings. And what we chose to use was one called Assign Fast, and that has autocomplete functionality so that when a user is typing in their search terms, it'll suggest valid subject headings that can be used. So we created a plugin that when the user is on, sorry about that, the subject creation screen in ArchivesSpace, the FAST widget will be inserted at the top. They'll just do a normal search in it like they would normally do, and it'll display, there's this laser on here, it'll display the valid headings below. And then once they've selected the heading they want to use, and you probably can't see this, it converts it temporarily to mark, and that's so that the plugin can properly fast the different parts of the heading. And then once you click Add to ArchivesSpace, well, you can't see that, but it imports it, it identifies it as being a fast heading, it imports the authority ID, and that's so it can identify if someone's already added it in the past. And it will identify if it's geographic or topical, it's geographic there, don't believe me, and the subdivision. So it's imported Rockbridge County as a subdivision of the state of Virginia. So now just to talk about some of the benefits we've experienced from, one second, this, all right. A main one stems from the fact that we are a very small archives. We only have one archivist who's a generalist, who assigns subject headings. And she has found that the ease with which she can look up headings and the speed with which she can add them has led her to add far more headings to materials than she used to in the past. So our materials have much richer descriptions than they used to. And a big one that's probably pretty specific to us is that it's really easy for looking up military regiment units, which in LC can be really tedious to build the proper heading for some obscure regiment from 200 years ago. And I think you probably can't see the screenshot, but FAST does a really good job with the auto-suggest. So that tells you the difference between the 86 Infantry Division and the 86 Infantry Regiment. I don't know what the difference is, but FAST seems to know. And then finally, I use this example, the occupation of Japan, as an example of a heading that's bad for browsing in FAST, which it is, but most of the time, if browsing isn't a big thing your users do, and it's probably not, the FAST heading is better for overall comprehension because FAST strives to use natural language headings more. So we find that's more important for our users in the long run, is to have these natural language headings, which we think our users appreciate.